I'm Lisa Medley. I'm your host. And thank you, Janina at the Willow Glen Library for getting us online and together. Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce our readers. Our first poet is Barbara Rass, and she's the author of 4 poetry collections: The Blues of Heaven, which was just published this month; The Last Skin, One Hidden Stuff, and Fight Every Sorrow, which won the Walt Whitman Award and also received the Kate Tufts Discovery Award. She's the recipient of fellowships from the Guggenheim and Rockefeller Foundations, among others. And The Blues of Heaven, Naomi Shihab Nye wrote. The book radiates with immense tenderness and shimmering energy. So thank you, and please welcome Barbara Rass.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for running this reading series, and thank you to Janina for her part in facilitating. I love your collaboration, and I want to say what a joy it is to be reading with Ellen Bass again. So this is our second time together, and I hope it's the second of many, many, many more to come. And I want to say that it's really an honor because I am a huge fan of Ellen's work. I'm going to start with a poem that is for the people in Atlanta and for their sorrow and their grief and for the senseless violence that occurred there and for victims of gun violence everywhere. This is called Slow Starting Rant. When I get in bed and turn out the lights, the dark makes my blind dog pant in my face and bark with hysteria. After the election, hysteria afflicts everyone I know. Let me just pause. That election. After the election, hysteria afflicts everyone I know, and depression grips even hardy people like Ben, who feels like a fly trapped in a bottle. Tim says he lives as if hiding in a tent duct taped to the kitchen floor. Lisa dunks into a cold bath to wake up limb by limb, limply. Dawn asks for a heavy pour of gin into the tonic, please, and lead me to the fainting couch. Don't tell me about a barbecue joint that discounts customers with open carry cards. How can our depraved country turn a blind eye at 323 mass shootings in 2018? Doesn't it make you want to bark? And what do the bereaved do with thoughts and prayers shot off by politicians with such makeshift expedients? They could be saying pots and pans, thunder and lightning, trigger finger, oops. This next poem takes its beginning from, well, actually, the entire poem takes its situation from a postcard a friend sent me from Krakow. And I had it on my refrigerator for years and loved looking at it. And finally, the poem emerged from the refrigerator and into this poem called Swans. It is dusk, the grass silky, where I walk barefoot in the postcard of a city far away. Swans glide on a lake in light so painterly You might as well call it wet. The way it bathes the scene in Corot's dream of pink skies, as if the photographer had turned the sun and the moon inside out and found there the very first wine, neither red nor white, but a stirring. Windows of the building along the shore vibrate from a loud rendering of Chopin's Remembrance. Believe me when I say the light is blooming. Believe me when I say the photographer has given birth to rose swans suspended forever in a blush evening, waiting without desire, abandoned as they were by time. I've had the good fortune to travel quite a lot in my life. It's actually a passion of mine. And in some instances, I was fortunate enough to have my travel sponsored by the International Writing Program, for which I have Christopher Merrill and his wonderful staff to thank, and all the people who support his efforts. And this poem begins, as many of my poems do, it begins in one place and ends up in another. And it ends up being a travel poem. It's called Tethers. God, we need rain and white flowers, petals mimicking teeth and eggshells. And don't forget the christening gown. Though lapsed, I still respond to holy water. All the fingers before me, all the fingers to come, a balm soothing like ancient rain. I'm still blown away that we walk on a blue ball, spinning at 100,000 miles an hour, and a foot wedded to gravity keeps us from a fling out of this world. Once in a Moroccan market, I watched a man and his donkey deliver bread to a stall. And after one round, flat loaf fell on the dusty cobblestones, he picked it up, brushed it off, and kissed it. I'd have eaten that bread, hugged the donkey, danced with the kissing man, one hand in the air, waving the way an olive branch waves in a slow wind, the vibrations of oud music carrying us in a circle, tying us in a small knot of humanity. My ancestry, a lot of people ask me, what kind of name is Ras? And in fact, it's Polish. And then, of course, the next question I get is, oh, well, it must have been shortened. What was it shortened from? And the reply is, it was always Ras, 3 letters, R-A-S. In any case, I have come to a place in my adulthood where I feel like I can write more about my heritage. And I also feel like I have the freedom to write more about my family, because sadly, most of them have departed. In any case, some of this is based on reality, and most of it is just completely based on the imagination. And it's called The Money Coat. In a strange succession, cousins I didn't know I had started popping into my life. One sending a photo of my father's family and of the 3 generations huddled in the parlor. Nobody left but me and the ache of unanswered questions. After the cousins disappeared, I met Pavel, the one who didn't make it to the States and lived as a bachelor in Warsaw, supporting his parents who had survived the war, hiding in holes in the rubble. Germans attacking from the right, Stalin laughing from the left. Chances are Pavel was a figment, but he told me that he thought eating rats paralyzed his parents, making him unfit for reality. Pavel, I said, nobody is fit for reality, but he scoffed, calling me a fool who had never stood in line for bread, which led to an argument about hunger, and then agreement about the failure of communism and capitalism, which is why he was headed to the casino to bet it all, his life savings, with dumb bravado. Then we lost touch. I imagine him winning big, going home to sew his zlotys into a coat, a sable coat he bought from the Russian scum at the Kroll Bazaar, haggling for more than an hour, maybe two, reaching a razor-sharp price. He'll probably sew the money into the lining of his coat, not for security, but in memory of the coats who escaped, the ones who didn't. My dear Pavel, when you board a ship at the Vistula docks, I hope the river will wash you of some memories and a lot of pain. Please don't act like a maniac, throwing caviar, Russian caviar, to the seagulls. Don't drink a daily bottle of vodka, the stylish one named for the small ponies in the ancient forests of your country. Let the weight of your sable coat anchor you. And when you reach the open ocean, please let the churning of sea foam calm you. Stand at the rail of the ship, the wind animating the fur of your coat, and look into the distance until you can't tell the sting of salt water from the sting of tears. This one's called Opportunity Costs. Thrushes. I don't know if I really enunciated that. I'm going to start again. Thrushes, alert for opportunity, sleep in winks of 30 seconds or less. Has Guinness tracked the longest sigh on record? And was it exhaled in exasperation or ecstasy? In the measure of apothecaries, one scruple equals 20 grains, a lot of data to debunk. 4 centuries ago, a watchmaker set up the first circus of fleas tied to carts. Since then, entertainment has changed a lot. Explosions, all the rage. Not long ago, whistling in an office could get you fired. And now, who of us blinks at torture taken to the brink of drowning? Not once per body, but a vomitous number I'm not going to hurt you with. Does the torturer ever give mouth to revive the victim for another round? And how does it feel, that intimacy? An alarm rings to wake the thrush for the next potential threat, thus serving the species for survival of the fittest. Meanwhile, in the Situation Room, our best minds compute opportunity costs with the poise of guys whose billboards brag, "We buy ugly houses." Give me the scale that weighs a whistle, a flea, the song of a thrush, the sum of pain caused by collateral damage, shrugged off as merely too many broken eggs to count in the march of history. I'm going to close with this last poem, With a Small Flashlight. With a small flashlight, you can look through the retina to the top of the brain, tracing the furrows there for words in Sanskrit, lost autographs of nobodies you thought were somebodies. Snakes, my friend Chang told me, are called little dragons in Chinese. With a small flashlight, you can, but you won't, check for monsters under the bed. You can signal in the dark, ready, buddy? Asking, come to me, over here, where we could shine a beam into fire, shine a beam into ashes, shine it into the past, into the yard of the North Street house, and with the light, maybe we could explain why my family clung to fear, disguised their shame, kept to themselves, fiercely avoiding people who did not speak Polish, but filling the shallow concrete bowl of the bird bath so that birds could drink and flutter their feathers outside the inside life. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Can we all unmute ourselves and give her a proper thank you?
Go, Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm really
Nice job,
grateful.
Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank
I
you,
just
Barbara.
want to say before I introduce Ellen, those that want to read at the open mic, please go ahead and put your name in the chat, and I will use that for the sign-up sheet. Okay, and now for our second feature. We're really fortunate to have a double feature today. And our next poet is Ellen Bass. And Ellen Bass's newest collection, Indigo, was published by Copper Canyon Press in April 2020. Her other poetry and books include Like a Beggar, The Human Line, and Mules of Love. Her poems appear frequently in the New Yorker, American Poetry Review, and many other journals. Among her rewards are fellowships from the NEA, the California Arts Council, and 3 Pushcart Prizes. The Lambda Literary Award, the Pablo Women's Poetry, No More Mass, the Pablo Neruda Prize, the Larry Levi's Prize, and New Letters Prize. She co-edited the first major anthology of women's poetry, No More Mass. And her nonfiction books include the groundbreaking The Courage to Heal, a guide for women survivors of child sexual abuse, and Free Your Mind, the book for gay, lesbian, and bisexual youth. A chancellor of the Academy of American Poets, Ellen founded poetry workshops at Salinas Valley State Prison and the Santa Cruz, California jails, and teaches an MFA writing program at Pacific University. Please welcome Ellen Bass.
So happy to be here with all of you. Barbara, that was, when you said I'm going to read one more poem, it was like you just started. It just went by too fast. And I don't think you showed people your gorgeous book. Isn't this absolutely, no, it has a little bit of glare on it. Let me hold it this way. Isn't it gorgeous? That's Barbara's new book. I'm very, very taken with it. It was great to hear you, and so good to be with all of you. I don't know how I would have gotten through this past year without poetry and coming together like this. And I just got, I'm going to read a few poems from my new-ish book, not as new as Barbara's. It came out right at the beginning of the pandemic, Indigo. And I'll start with the first poem. This is Sous Chef. I like cutting the cucumber, the knife slicing the darkness into almost transparent moons, each with its own thin rim of night. I like smashing the garlic with the flat of steel and peeling the sticky, papery skin from the clove. Tell me what to do. I'm free of will. I carve the lamb into 1-inch cubes. I don't use a ruler, but I'd be happy to. Give me a tomato, bright as a parrot. Give me peaches like burning clouds. I'll pare those globes until dawn. The syrup will linger on my fingers like your scent. Let me escape my own insistence. I am the bee feeding the queen. Show me how you want the tart glazed. I still have opinions, but I don't believe in them. Let me fillet the supple bones from the fish. Let me pit the cherries, husk the corn. You say how much cinnamon to spice the stew. I've made bad decisions, so I'm grateful for this yoke lowered onto my shoulders, potatoes mounded before me. With all that's destroyed, look how the world still yields a golden pear. Freckled and floral, a shimmering marvel. It rests in my palm so heavily, perfectly. Somewhere there is hunger, somewhere fear. But here the chopping block is solid, my blade sharp. I think every time I read this poem and I read I've made bad decisions, there's a few more that I've made, or in this case, I'm just thinking of one more really big one since reading this. And it's just amazing how you write something and then you go, wow, that's even truer than I thought it was. Oh my goodness. That's why we have poetry, because any other measure would be too painful. This poem's called The Small Country. Unique, I think, is the Scottish tartle, that hesitation when introducing someone whose name you've forgotten. And what could capture cafuné, the Brazilian Portuguese way to say, running your fingers tenderly through someone's hair? Is there a term in any tongue for choosing to be happy? And where is speech for the block of ice we pack in the sawdust of our hearts? What appellation approaches the smell of apricots, thickening the air when you boil jam in early summer? What words reach the way I touched you last night, as though I had never known a woman? An explorer, wholly curious to discover each particular fold and hollow, without guide, not even the mirror of my own body. Last night, you told me you like my eyebrows. You said you never really noticed them before. What is the word that fuses this freshness with the pity of having missed it? And how even touch itself cannot mean the same to both of us, even in this small country of our bed, even in this language with only 2 native speakers. I've really been missing my mother recently, and so it's not because we're separated by COVID. She died quite some time ago, but it makes me feel close to her to read poems about her. So this one is called The Orange and White High-Heeled Shoes. Today I'm thinking about those shoes, white with a tangerine stripe across the toe and forceful orange heels that fit both my mother and me. We used to shop like that, trying them on side by side. That was when there still was a man who would cradle your heel in his palm and guide your foot. Sometimes he would think he made a sale, only to have one of us turn to the other, and he would have to kneel again, hoping to ease another naked soul into the bed of suede or leather. I thought those shoes were just the peak of chic. And, my God, she bought me a pair of orange cotton gloves to complete the ensemble. Why is there such keen pleasure in remembering? You are dead 10 years, and these showy slippers, we wore them more than half a century ago. The first boy had not yet misted my breasts with his breath, and you were strong as a muscled goddess, gliding nylons over your calves, lifting your amplitude into a breastplate. Who will remember these pumpkin-colored pumps when I die too? Who will remember how we slid into them like girls diving into a cedar-tinged lake, like bees entering the trumpet of a flower, like birds disappearing into the green, green leaves of summer? This next poem is an ode to my dear departed dog, and his name is Zeke, or was Zeke. I don't know what the right verb tense is, but he loved poetry. He loved poets. Whenever there was a poetry gathering, he would come there and be with the poets. He was very patient. He came out to my office every day and sat with me when I wrote. I wrote this in the last couple of weeks of his life. It's called Ode to Zeke. O breathing drum, O cask of dark waters, O decaying star, my barking heart, my breaking brother, what will seep into the space your body leaves? O huge 18-muscled ears, oscillating ossicles and cochlea, your busy canals, now hollow caves of quiet. I have said your fur is black, but you are silvered, rhymed with frost. You are the new moon. You are light in the dark house. How long will I see your shadow? O heavy hunk of existence, O great flank I have rested my head upon when I was too weak for human touch. Sleek, leading man, you debonair dog, how people on the avenue stop to swoon. O splaying legs once faster than rabbits, canines slashing flesh, urgent thug, unstoppable thrust, O happy snapping at the wind. What do you remember now that you are mudslide, glacier melting, cliff collapsing into the sea? I have memorized your milky breath, your ballet leaps and whirligigging, your princely patience as the children dressed you. Soccer Zeke, in jersey and shorts, one paw on the ball. Snorkel Zeke, with mask and fins. Bar mitzvah Zeke, and a yarmulke, and my father's silk talit. Oh, my text of decrepitude, my usher to death, companion of 10,000 years. I'll fry you a fish. I'll sit by your bowl. Eat from my hand. I have nowhere to go. And if any of you are on Instagram, you can see a picture of Zeke in his yarmulke and my father's silk tallit. When the kids did that, I screamed at them that if they tore that silk tallit, they were going to be in big time trouble. But all was well. Nothing happened to it. This is the title poem from this book. It's called Indigo. As I'm walking on West Cliff Drive, a man runs toward me, pushing one of those jogging strollers with shock absorbers so the baby can keep sleeping, which this baby is. I can just get a glimpse of its almost translucent eyelids. The father is young, a jungle of indigo and carnelian, tattooed from knuckle to jaw, leafy vines and blossoms, saints and symbols. Thick wooden plugs pierce his lobes, and his sunglasses testify to the radiance haloed around him. I'm so jealous, as I often am. I want him to have been my child's father. I want to have married a man who wanted to be in a body, who wanted to live in it so much that he marked it up like a book, underlining, highlighting, writing in the margins, I was here. Not like my dead ex-husband, who was always fighting against the flesh, who sat for hours on his zafu chanting Om, and then went out and broke his hand punching the car. I imagine when this galloping man gets home, he's going to want to have sex with his wife who slept in late, and then he'll eat barbecued ribs and let the baby teethe on a bone while he drinks a dark beer. I can't stop wishing my daughter had had a father like that. I can't stop wishing I'd had that life. Oh, I know. It's a miracle to have a life, any life at all. It took 8 years for my parents to conceive me. First there was the war, and then just waiting. And my mother's bones so narrow, she had to be slit, and I airlifted. That anyone is born, each precarious success from sperm and egg to zygote, embryo, infant, is a wonder. And here I am, alive, almost 70 years, and nothing has killed me. Not the car I totaled running a stop sign, or the spirochete that screwed into my blood. Not the tree that fell in the forest exactly where I was standing, my best friend shoving me backward so I fell on my ass as it crashed. I'm alive, and I gave birth to a child. So she didn't get a father who'd sling her onto his shoulder, and so much else she didn't get. I've cried most of my life over that. And now there's everything that we can't talk about. We love, but cannot take too much of each other. Yet she is the one who, when I asked her to kill me, if I no longer had my mind, we were on our way into Ross shopping for dresses. That's something she likes, and they all look adorable on her. She's the only one who didn't hesitate or refuse or waver or flinch. As we strode across the parking lot, she said, okay, but when's the cutoff? That's what I need to know. This poem's called Any Common Desolation. Can be enough to make you look up at the yellowed leaves of the apple tree, the few that survived the rains and frost, shot with late afternoon sun. They glow a deep orange gold against a blue so sheer a single bird would rip it like silk. You may have to break your heart, but it isn't nothing to know even one moment alive. The sound of an oar in an oarlock, or a ruminant animal tearing grass, the smell of grated ginger, the ruby neon of the liquor store sign, warm socks. You remember your mother, her precision a ceremony, as she gathered the white cotton, slipped it over your toes, drew up the heel, turned the cuff. A breath can uncoil as you walk across your own muddy yard, the Big Dipper pouring night down over you, and everything you dread, all you can't bear, dissolves, and, like a needle slipped into your vein, that sudden rush of the world. I want to read one more poem, a new one that just came out in the New Yorker last week. And I also just want to mention, in case any of you, I mean, poetry is just what got me through this last year. And I've been doing this series. I know some of you have been there, a series of craft talks that I've called living room craft talks, because they're I've always been encouraged to do talks on the craft of poetry for writers, for poets, but the idea of doing something that had to be absolutely polished always was intimidating to me. Like, you know, how TED Talks are just so put together, because I didn't want it to be like if my chickens started clucking in the background, you know, that I had to like do the whole thing over again. And so I called them living room craft talks, so they would have that informal feeling. And they've really been great. And if any of you are interested, I'm just going to put my website in the oh, thank you, Laura, in the chat, in case you want to check them out. And there's a new series going to start the beginning of April. And one of the great things about this technology that we have, even though we've had to be apart, it's offered some opportunities so that if you or anybody would really like to do this, but finances are a problem, you can, anyone who needs it can have a scholarship or a partial scholarship or whatever it is that you need, because there isn't like a physical room that we have to squash just a certain number of people into. So pass the word if you know people who might benefit. And you know, everyone is welcome. And it's kind of like a one-room schoolhouse. I teach to a pretty high level, sort of MFA level in a way, but I also try and make it really possible for everybody who may be just beginning to be able to follow along, as long as you're brave enough to go fast. They're informal, but they're very packed. And I'm trying something. I hate this. I hate when they put things on. I'm trying to get this on my computer. Okay, they want to check for updates, and you're trying to like get your poem up on here. Okay, I got it out of the way. And you know, it's right in the corner where you're like trying to move the thing. I'm sure you've had that experience. And you're afraid if you click something that it's going to like start to download something, and I'll be gone from you and you'll be gone from me. But no, it worked out. Okay, we got it. So I'm going to read this poem to end. It's called How to Apologize. Cook a large fish. Choose one with many bones. A skeleton you will need skill to expose. Maybe the flying silver carp that's invaded the Great Lakes, tumbling the others into oblivion. If you don't live near a lake, you'll have to travel. Walking is best and shows you mean it. But you could take a train and let yourself be soothed by the rocking on the rails. It's permitted to receive solace for whatever you did or didn't do. Pitiful, beautiful human. When my mother was in the hospital, my daughter and I had to clear out the home she wouldn't return to. Then she recovered and asked, incredulous, how could you have thrown out all my shoes? So you'll need a boat. You could rent or buy, but for the sake of repairing the world, build your own. Thin strips of Western red cedar are perfect, but don't cut a tree. There'll be a demolished barn or downed trunk if you venture further, and someone will have a mill, and someone will loan you tools. The perfume of sawdust and the curls that fall from your plane will sweeten the hours. Each night we dream 36 billion dreams. In one night, we could dream back everything lost. So grill the pale flesh, unharness yourself from your weary stories, then carry the oily, succulent fish to the one you hurt. There is much to fear as a creature caught in time, but this is safe. You need no defense. This is just another way to know you are alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen. That was beautiful. Everybody, please unmute yourselves so we can thank her properly.